Hello, welcome, Daniëlle Hellebrand.
Thank you, Jim. So good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, very nice to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm fine. I just went out with my dog. The weather is beautiful. And I prepared in my head, or I took the time to concentrate on our conversation, the dialogue we're having today.
Yeah, because today we will talk about the importance of dialogue. Maybe first of all, yeah, like you are a keynote speaker. You just ended your master. So tell the people a little bit who is Daniëlle Hellebrand.
Who am I? Yeah, that was a search for almost 54 years. Well, I'm a mother of an 18-year-old son. I live in the south of the Netherlands in Vaals. Um, I worked for a lot of years in the corporate world, and about 10 years ago, I quit my job and I started studying again. I was always fascinating on the subject of interaction between people. What are the things that are helpful in a dialogue and in an interaction, and what are the things that are not so helpful, and why is it not always easy for us to connect and to build on something better together and not having the me versus them. So I dove into the world of interpersonal neurobiology, into cognitive neurosciences, on the importance of good social interaction on our cognition. Yeah, and now I'm working as a coach and keynote speaker and a podcast host where I have dialogues about talking the naked truth. Because I think in our world it's also important to look behind the masks of us all. We have this mask to the outside world, but there is also a lot of going on the other side of our mask, and trying to find conversations and interactions and dialogues with people. So that's in a nutshell who I am and what I'm doing.
Yeah, and in the meantime, Julian is in the audience.
Oh, Julian! Oh,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
wonderful, wonderful person. Yeah, he was on our last podcast. So much wisdom. So it was reverse mentoring, we called it. He's the younger generation, and he spoke to Professor Dr. Beverly Wilson Wunsch, my co-host, and I. We spoke to Julian. The reverse mentoring thing. We are learning from him. He's learning from us. So beautiful. So nice to see that you are there, Julian.
Yeah, yeah, I see the there the chat box.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the king of hospitality,
Oh,
something like that.
no, yeah. No, he's the emperor of hospitality. He
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
I never met someone who has hospitality. He's born with hospitality in his blood. He got it
yeah,
through his mother milk. I don't know how, but he is. He breathes and lives hospitality. Yeah.
yeah. Now you keep learning. Why are you doing that?
Jim, just for a while I came to the conclusion. I think part of all that research is also me search, trying to understand myself better. I think the moment I understand myself, I'm a much nicer person to the people around me. And the other thing is, we live in such a complex world. I try just to, I think we people have to do it, work on a better other world and future. And my fascination is how can we do that? And we have to do that together in a dialogue, seeing where we come from, feeling the situation, the presence we're in, and sensing the future that we want to go, we want to have, and where we're going to. And I think it starts with people. And I choose the hard way of studying the brain at an old age, as my son said. Yeah, and curious. As Julian is born with hospitality, I was born with curiosity in my blood. So this isn't the last study. It's just learning new things. Also to be um, someone who can contribute in a conscious way to the world we're in now and where we're going to contribute to that, and trying to look to subjects from very different angles. I think that's so important.
Yeah, and we got a first question. What is the definition for you of a dialogue?
Oh, whoa, that's a very good question. The definition of a dialogue is, I think it starts with trust. If I open up to you about a question or a thing I have, that's one part of the equation. The other part is my question or my thing safe in your hands? And can we together talk about it and work on things? So it's two people who go, who cross that bridge together. And without trust and putting my ego a little bit aside and holding space for your otherness and other opinion, and you holding space for my otherness and my other opinion, and together trying to learn from that and act in a very responsible way from that we are talking. You know, trying for me to get in your shoes and you trying to get in my shoes. I think that is at the heart of a dialogue. I mean, if you want a monologue, write a blog or something. But a dialogue is people with different angles talking about different subjects with different worldviews, and we all holding space for that and build from that. That's a good dialogue for me.
And what's then the purpose of that dialogue?
Um, I think the what's the purpose of that dialogue? It can be something that we can solve very quick. It can just be that we learn from each other. But what we need now are dialogues with people from very different kind of views to think about a better future. That is for me now in our society something so important that I think we desperately need that dialogue because the future, we know that the world we're living in now is coming, you know, to its ends. We reach limits. We are, I don't know, we are spoiling 1.7 Earth, so, and we just can't move all 8 billion people. So we have to have good dialogues on how to move on from here because the future is not the place we travel to, like I traveling to India or to Canada or to the South of America. The future is a thing in dialogue we create together. So that's one, for me, one important purpose of having good dialogues.
Now you have a son.
I have a
How
son.
easy,
I'm
how easy is it to have like a
We're live,
dialogue?
aren't we?
Yeah.
No, no, no. That's also a good question, Jim, because I have an 18-year-old son. Um, for 5 years, I was divorced, and so I raised my son since then on my own, although I have a partner now. But I take that responsibility very, very deep. I feel that deep responsibility. And where there was a time, you know, that I just, you know, could give orders, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. He's 18 now. And now I try to have as much dialogues with my 18-year-old son to understand the world he is living in mentally, the world he is living in with his peers. And now I really can say there is a kind of a reverse mentoring. It's not mama who says, be on time, do this, do that, eat your
Mhm.
greens, eat your veggies. I think at the moment, he is my biggest teacher about learning about the world the younger
Mhm.
people are in. And
Yeah.
that means also
No.
having a dialogue about a lot of things, and also bringing not so nice things to the table. You know the English phrase, the elephant in the room. I literally bought an elephant, a nice blue elephant, and when one of us puts the elephant on the table, that means I'm struggling with something. We have to know a dialogue. So he knows when I put the blue elephant on the table, he knows, oops, mom is having something on her mind. And if he puts the blue elephant on the table, I think, oops, mom should close down her laptop and we have to have a conversation.
Yeah. And where is that then that the biggest gap in that dialogue when you compare like your world towards their world?
Oh, Jim, there is a gap. There is a gap. First of all, I'm a little bit seasoned mother. Luke I was 37 when he was born. And I come from a generation, that means his grandparents are also very old, 80, in their mid 80s. So I, his mother, come from a world that was absolutely analog. You know, I traveled with this thick, lonely planet in my backpack. There was no digital connection with other people. My father had a limit on telephone calls, so I had to jump on my bike to see other people and talk with them and spend time with them. Now, my son is raised in a fully digital world. There is a lot of broad world all over the world. It's coming into his bedroom and his phone, where he's connected with so many things. Plus, we had a pandemic where all the young people, also my son, spent 2 years in his room by his own, behind his phone. So it's so different, Jim. It's so different. And one of the conversations I had with him, he said, "Bama, your career and you and that, you're always working, and you're also always working, etc., etc. Do I want that? I also want to travel. I want to learn things. I want to do things. Maybe I want to have 2 jobs. I want to be a slashy." And his dream is being a pilot and being in medicine, maybe at some place a flying doctor. He said, "I want to be a slashy, flying and doing my medical stuff." And I thought, geez, that's also interesting, you know. My grandparents and I, you know, we thought we've learned something. You know, much luck for the rest of your life. But now, and he also sees it in me, that at an old age, at 44, I started to study again. So that is also possible. You can redefine yourself, and also that is important to keep learning, because having good listening and conversational skills and good learning skills, I think those are 2 very much important 20th century skills, I think. But there is a gap, Jim. Oh, there is a gap. And
Yeah.
sometimes there are very big question marks above my head, and I think, you know, wouldn't have dared to ask certain things or saying no to things. On the one hand, I admire that. He's working now, and he found a company who's paying such a low wage. And he said, "No, Mama, I'm not going to do that. I have to earn some money for this and this and that. I'm just not going to do that." I would never have dared to speak up. I mean, ages ago. I just did it, you know. We obeyed more. And the
Mhm.
discussion he is seeking with his environment, I love that. On the other hand, I also see young people and sometimes things, hey, come on, you know.
What? Come on, what?
You know, sometimes I think, just do and
Yeah.
stick to the things you promised and be on time.
Yeah.
Be on time. We said it starts at 1 o'clock, and don't just come in 5 minutes past, or I think, oh, I'll do that tomorrow, or you know, it's yeah. What are the differences you see? I mean, I think we're almost the same age. What are the things
Yeah, yeah.
you
I'm
see?
50, 54. So yeah, what I see, and I measure these things like in the scan I developed.
Yeah,
So I see like really like in numbers. I see like what is changing. So what I see, for example, when I give a keynote, for example, for millennials, and I give the same. I had that. I give the same keynote to Gen Z people, like when it's like really touching, when it's like really doing something for society, like Gen Z, like they start applauding. Millennials, they don't do that. So I see like this shift, yeah, that shift going on towards more consciousness, towards more spirituality, that I see. But unfortunately, also what I see is like our generation, like we have like kind of let's say, stability, or like in German, Gründlichkeit, and like reliability, integrity. When we do something, or when we say something, we do it. That is something like, yeah, when we create something, like, I think the minimum viable product of our generation is like, yeah, a lot higher than like, and maybe it's the Chinese impact, I don't know, that just seems to, because it's my perception, seems to yeah, reduce the quality of the minimum viable product of the newer generations.
But you know, Jim, wasn't that through history that there always was a counter thing to the things your parents did? Or maybe with the millennials. I mean, to be honest, as a mom, I think they didn't fall from heaven with that
Mhm.
mentality. I mean, we can talk about
Yeah.
that as parents. Look at the younger people, but we raise them the way they
Mhm.
are, you know. And of course, I also see those things partially in my son. On the other hand, I think he is so incredibly conscious about eating meat, about the
Yeah.
climate. He's 18, he went into politics, so in trying to make a difference. So I really don't think we as parents just can say, look at the younger people, what are they doing? What was our responsibility? I mean, the world we're in now, we created them. I mean, I did not personally create the internet, but you know, we worked on that. I come from a command and control world where I
Yeah.
worked
Yeah.
in the beginning of my time, you know? And that is something I I'm glad my son doesn't want to work in that kind of environment, because how many smart people are running around in the world, Jim, and the problems we're facing, like climate change, loss of biodiversity,
Yeah.
burnout. I mean, burned out people burn the planet. We cannot think properly. That was my master thesis. What happens with people if we don't have good social interactions and we feel burned out? Our IQ sinks temporarily, and you're not able to have good dialogues and make good decisions for the future, you
Mhm.
know. And I'm glad when I look at my son, the way he's conscious about meditating, um, uh, uh, thinking about things, going in politics. Mama, why can we just eat meat 2 times a week? You know, the poor animals. So many discussions. And I think
Mhm.
also it's the role of the parents, you know, to also be conscious about that, and yeah, having the dialogue and preparing them for the
Mhm.
future. And that is why I also think in families is this reverse mentoring important, because if I start acting like the mom I was, do this, do that, I miss the information he can present me
Mhm.
about what is going on in his world, and how the 17, 18, 19 years old see the world and the future. So I can be a part of trying to build that and think that with them. And also opening my son up. Sometimes he just has to listen to his mom. I mean, I'm 54. I also have a lot of experience. So
Mhm.
wanted to share that with him. So it's all not easy. I mean, we talk about soft skills, but there are hard skills. And one of the most important skills, and one of them is having good dialogues, listening to each other,
Mhm.
really listening, not just to respond, but to learn
Yeah.
something about that.
Yeah. Now to have like a good dialogue, you say like, okay, you need to be like a good listener. In fact, like the generation, it's like kind of a change, like a difference we need to have, for me, like a good dialogue. It's when it's like just like people, similar minded people, I think it's less, how to say, interactive, than when there is like really a gap or a change between generations, to
Hmm.
have like, is that like, that change between generations, is that also something that is needed to have a good dialogue?
Of course, Jim. A few months ago, I was within a company where 5 generations are at work. People have to work longer, and people can student. They have to make a tempo with their studies. So 5 generations on the work floor, and you know that a cohort of a generation is about 15 years, and they all come with their own mindset, experience, learn things, etc. And there was hardly any dialogue. And what I found in that company, that the younger people were more open and respectful to the older generation,
Mhm.
and with that generation, I speak of 63, 4, 5, 6, 7, then that generation to the younger ones, they just are not on time, they don't want to work their ass off, they look on their stupid phones, etc., etc. So I thought, oh, people, maybe try, and I spoke with them, do you have grandchildren? Yes, the older people had. And I said to the younger people, do you have grandpas and grandmas? Yes, we have. Are you talking to them and acting to them all the way you're doing now at the workforce? No. I thought, well, the 65-year-old person is not your granddad, but he is maybe from the era like your parents or grandparents. And I said to the older people, those young people, in a few years, they're your grandchildren. So let's find the dialogue as we hopefully try to do in our own homes. And yes, Jim, also people from 70, 80, they have a lot of experience and history to share. But also the younger people have their vision on the world, and that are such important dialogues we have to have intergenerationally. Also knowing where you come from, as they say in German, I don't know how to say it in English. Zukunft braucht Herkunft. Future needs knowing where you come from, because
Mhm.
it's in our DNA. It's the transgenerational epigenetics. We carry the genes of all of our ancestors in us. We cannot close our eyes for that. It's there. So we have the discussion to have an understanding, where is the world and people coming from, and what is needed to build a better future. And I think for our generation, Jim, it sounds a little bit harsh, but we screwed up a lot of things in the
Mhm.
environment, in ecologically, command and control, etc. And I think, as a mother, I think we owe it to future generations, but we also owe it to ourselves. But hopefully, you and I will be here for another 30 years, and a lot is going to happen in those 30 years.
Yeah. Was COVID, was that kind of a dialogue from the universe towards like humanity?
You know, sometimes there was a moment, I can tell you, at the beginning, I thought, thank God, whatever, whoever, that you put the world on hold and gave us time to think and reflect and give nature the time to breathe, and, all species time to breathe. I don't know. But it's here to stay. There are a lot of other crises are going to come. It's part of our lives. And I hope we are waking up. We talk about that. We have a lot of knowledge. There is enough money in the world to have a fair share for everyone. There is enough food in the world to feed everyone. There is enough. We know enough knowledge. But where is the wisdom? The wisdom to make the best out of it. And that's the huge knowing, doing gap there is, I think. What do you
Mhm.
think?
Yeah, it's like it's never ending. It's like with learning. It's like yeah, you can isolate yourself and think and judge and like not move or not change or like look at nature like now the leaves are getting yellow and then they fall off and then they come
I
back
love
again
it,
like
autumn.
yeah
It's a
it's like
transition. It's a transition. Yeah, to a new
yeah,
season.
and that's how I feel like also like what is going on now. It's like a reaction of and that is also how I experienced COVID myself, it's like a reaction. It's going from the masculine to from the doing towards like more like the being and like the
Yeah,
trusting and then it's like a I really felt it like as a pendulum that like where the range is getting smaller and smaller and going from the masculine to the feminine from
yeah,
the result to the balance and that is like I think on a larger scale what is happening with the generations that they are just rebelling like and yeah to
exactly.
what we to what we did and then yeah maybe going too
As
far
we
and,
did also, Jim.
yeah
We
sure
did that
yeah
also. I did all the things I wasn't allowed to do, from smoking, drinking, going out without knowing my parents knowing. I did. I think we also did things, but I think one important thing I hope that is a little more clear to us. At the beginning, I thought, oh, it's a Wuhan thing, a China thing. On the other side of the world, just we go on business as usual. But I hope and I think it woke us up to the fact that life is interdependence and interconnectedness.
Mhm,
With the loss of biodiversity, so much things are not going in the right direction. Our brains are social organs, not a thinking organ. Thinking is a byproduct. We influence each other much more than we always thought we would. If I open up to you and you do not respond in a good way,
mhm,
it creates a lot of fear in my body. And then chemical and electronic impulses are going on. There's a cocktail of stress in my body. The moment, like now, we have a beautiful conversation. I feel at ease in your company. I trust you. Then I can think clear. I am able to share all the things I'm doubting. I think I know for sure the things I'm thinking about. And in that dialogue, because dialogue needs trust, it needs
mhm,
trust, like the acronym transparency. And in transparency, having a good relationship, the you from understanding each other, and the S of a shared thing we're working on. And
mhm.
then there is transparency and trust. And if we have that in a dialogue and putting our ego a little bit aside, then you listen to me, I listen to you point of view, I chew on that, I think of that, I come up maybe with new ideas with which we can create new things, better things, other things.
Yeah, and what I saw is it gets easier when everybody like kind of integrates a mix of masculine and feminine
Of
energy.
course. Of
So
course.
then it's like the conflict. We are like kind of then avoiding conflict, or the conflicts are getting smaller and smaller, and then the dialogue becomes smoother and smoother. The moment that each individual gets like more whole, and that means like yeah, really the balance between masculine and feminine. That is smoothing the dialogue.
And that is the important thing, Jim. We need yin and yang. We need the feminine and the masculine. We need the individual that I can
Mhm,
do the things I think I want to do or think about. But there's also a systemic thing. It's the me and the you. There is this dual, there is, two parts of a coin. We need it all. We all need
mhm,
that. And this individuality fetish we had for too long time, we see
mhm,
it. We talked about that often, about the numbers from the World Health Organization, the numbers of burnout, people who get sick. This morning I heard on the radio, over the next 10 years, they think that 500,000 people in the Netherlands are suffering more from cancer due to getting old, but also due to our stress and our lifestyle. I mean, where is this going? This individuality and this not being aware that we need each other, that we have to ask help on each other, and that we're interconnected. If we don't get that, it's the nature of things. It won't do us any good. So that is why dialogues like this, and that's why I love my podcast. And that's, if I could earn my money with just talking to people and create gatherings, and where are we going, and how can we create a responsible, good, better future. Ah, I could do it all day.
Yeah. Last question. What do we need of each other?
Trust and psychological safety. So I can open up to you and you can open up to me. Because we're getting sick with social animals. We are getting sick if we don't do that. And again, burned out people who just think for themselves burn out the planet. And the complexity of the world we're living in, it's too huge, too big, too complex to leave it to a few politicians and a few big companies. We all need each other in that.
Thank you very much for all your wisdom, and
Thank you for having me.
we see each other soon.
We do. Bye bye, Jim. Tthank you.
Bye bye.